Welcome to episode 121 of Closer Mentality. Today's guest has experienced team dysfunction firsthand, and instead dedicated her professional career to the education of teams on markers of positive culture. Isabel Delgado's interest in sport began with tennis, rugby, and kung fu, the latter two of which were actively discouraged by her parents for being too rough and dangerous. She was a small girl, and getting pushed around worried her parents. In reality, though, Delgado was internalizing the struggles and problem-solving her way to success.
Sport has always been my passion, right? And I guess my journey has been a bit different than other people I know, most people I know. Because most people I met in the sports world were encouraged from the start, right? They have a solid support system around them, parents encouraging, everything is great. And I was kind of the opposite. I was actively discouraged from going down this path because sports was not seen in my house as, a way forward, right? And then it was always like, oh no, always the excuse like you're too small, or that's not the right thing for you, or, there's always an excuse. And for me, as I got deeper into the sports world and working with athletes and working with colleagues and, in the sports psychology field, that difference really stood out, right? Like, for example, when I practiced Kung Fu and I qualified for the regional championship, my parents didn't allow me to compete, right? It's too violent, you're not going to do it, it's too dangerous. But the thing is that made me only more determined, but also left me with lots of insecurities, right? So I guess that's all my interest in sports psychology, right? But then, didn't stop me, right? I went on my life practicing like sports like rugby 15s and eventually became a tennis coach, right? Tennis has been my absolute passion. And now I volunteer to coach children with special needs at my club. It's all about, if you want something, right? Nothing is going to stop you, right? It's all about determination. And I think that's been something key in my career, right? I've always done everything with a lot of passion and determination. I always wanted to do what I did. There's nothing I said, like, I went for it just because I had to. I never really had to, right? I went to the path that I wanted. And that's what I think, even when people are not, sometimes they're discouraged, oh, that's not the right role for you. Are you sure it's not the right role for you? Maybe it's not about the role. Maybe it's you're taking an approach that is not the right one. Maybe you don't have the right support. So that's what I like bringing to business as well, right? If someone is like, okay, this is like, you're not meeting your targets. Why are you not meeting the targets? Is it really because you're not good for this, or you're not being trained, or you're not being guided? And that's most of the times, that's usually the case, right? Like, you need to find someone to guide you. You need to find a system that works for you to help you guide yourself as well and find a path.
Delgado found that the coach-based messaging intended to elicit positive motivation styles many times fell short.
But I still hear so many coaches disagreeing with the psychologist. And that's shocking, right? They're like, no, this person needs a break and stuff. What do you think? Like, no, they have to continue. It's like, okay, but then you're seeing the short term. You're not seeing the long term. And some coaches, I'm not going to mention them, but they're actually quite well known. They did not believe in sports psychology, right? It's like, oh no, they'll be fine. Of course they'll be fine. But really, if you want someone to be at their best, the best is not the best physically. The best is physically and mentally, right? It's a whole, we are people. We are rational animals. And what that means, rational means that we think. And because we think, we overthink, and we have tendencies of doing one thing or reacting or have feelings. And that's something we cannot suppress. And if we pretend to suppress, we can pretend to suppress because we cannot suppress them. And then it's going to become to something dark, right? So I think that mentally, it's a bit of a stigma. And I love that Simone Biles talked about this, right? And people were crucifying her for that. Oh my God, and she doesn't want to do this anymore. I was like, she has the drive, she has the fire, she clearly has the talent, she has demonstrated that, going back, but she's the only one that's brave enough to talk about how important it's been for her and for her development, for being at the very, very top. Being at the very top is very lonely. And that's something that we don't want to admit. It is lonely at the top because everybody wants something from you. And that's what it is, right? And that is in business as well. So it's very hard to trust people, right? When you have achieved so much. So you have to make sure you take care of yourself. And the mental part of sports it's a long-term development. You have to develop, when we are developing young athletes as well, it's not about physically developing them, that's fantastic, but then mentally, because you see, especially when I monitor like tournaments, right, when these younger athletes, and you see them struggle, and you see them, obviously sometimes they throw a racket, and like behaviors that are not ideal, but then you just like talk to them, right, understand why, right? And sometimes there's a lot of frustration, and there's something more than just losing a point. It's not just losing a point, it's a fear of disappointing someone close to them, for example. So we need to work on these things, because it just, if we don't address these things, it just gets worse, it escalates, and it becomes something worse. So I think that we're very, very behind in terms of talking about mental health in sport, and the importance of having a strong mentality. You have to build it up. It's work. And it's sometimes you think like, oh, it's annoying because I have to do extra work on top of my, physical work on court, on the pitch. But then again, it's what's going to make you strong.
Between negativity disguised as benchmarks and motivation styles ill-aligned with team mentality, Delgado came away from the consulting in the beginning of her career with a somewhat negative outlook on coaching culture.
Culture is just everything, right? It's not just for coaches or of leaders to see that. It's about making the team understand the concept, right? If someone is not being supported, right, like they need to understand how important it is to have a supporting community, right? Because for me, at the time, asking questions was not right, right? Like it's like, oh no, because I was used not to having support. And when I found myself with a system of support around me, I was very confused, because the perception completely changes, right? So it's not everything relying on myself, but also around me. So it's like having to trust other people, and just having, if you trust, right, it means that there's some safety, but it takes a while to create that, right? So for me, the core job of a coach is to build a functioning community for performance. That's how I would describe it. And developing a positive culture for a community is all about how safe the members feel in it, right? And safety is the trigger for positive culture. The team needs to feel they are in a safe space, safe from judgment, safe to perform, safe to speak out. And if a team is safe, they'll bring themselves to work, right? I hear this kind of concept a lot. Or be able to be on oneself at work. And this is great. But that only happens if someone feels safe to do so, which means there must be a relationship of trust. And that takes time sometimes, right? And especially with people that never had a system of support in the past, is something that they'd be more reticent to get straight into it, right? So we have to build that muscle. And then trust does not mean they have to be in full agreement with everything, right? That's just not realistic. But a leader has to share with the team clear goals and expectations, and it has to facilitate bi-directional open communication. It's not just telling things, right? It's like receiving. And the team has to feel part of it. They have to be involved, ask them for feedback, make them feel part of it, that their opinion is valued, and agree on the way they're going to interact with each other. And it pretty much comes down to communication and mutual agreement, right? So the fuel of a team is communication, or the fuel of a relationship really is communication. Are we communicating the right way? Am I getting what I need in terms of information, right? Because information goes always on it's about the you, right? About who receives the information. And then obviously efforts towards positive language, which is very important as well. When it comes to team sports, it's about two things. It's the individual. So you have to get to know the motivations of the individual, motivations personal, just for themselves, and for the team. So there's two different types. It's a bit more complex, because you have to find time to get to know the team, support the team, be there with them, understand them, but also as a team, right? All together as a dynamic, there's different behaviors, right? I behave this way as a person, myself personally. When I'm in a team, I belong, I'm part of something, right? It's not all about me now. So it's a different dynamic. And that's when it completely changes, right? So it's not that it's too different, right? But like, if you're used to working in a team, there's an extra complexity of making sure that the team is working, right? For example, conflict. There's always going to be conflict in a team, always, right? And how do you deal with conflict, right? When you're by yourself, right? It's a one-on-one, right? There's a conflict, it's the coach and it's the individual, and that's it. But there is a conflict within the team. the leader or the coach has to step in and understand. Do you have to step in all the time? Not necessarily, right? Sometimes they can solve things themselves, and that's perfect. But in the situation where they are not, then you need to step in, because that's going to affect the rest of the team dynamic, right? So it's an extra effort, I'd say, from and putting energy into looking into the wider scope, how the team functions, how you want the team to function, and how does the team want the team to function? Because it's not just about you, right? It's just the whole team. How do they want to function? How do they want to work together? And you have to orchestrate it so it works, right? When it comes to the individual, it's way more getting to know, and it gets into a deeper psychological aspect, right, of their lives, because you really become it's more than a coach, right? It becomes more of a personal relationship as well, when you're spending so many hours together, and you really have to understand, okay, right, and sometimes, step back, right? You cannot be on top of that person, because in a team, you have your own space. When we are in a one-on-one relationship, sometimes, like, you know what, I need some space, because you don't get the space. And sometimes the athlete needs some space, right? And whatever, in business context as well. Sometimes you need space. Okay, I give you space, and now we keep on working, right? Because we need to keep going. There is high expectations from athletes, professionals, and they have to be met all the time, right? So it's a process, it's continuous. It's not like, here we go, that's the end of the road, and that's it, I'm perfect. No, you're not, right? You might have won a tournament, here comes the next one. People are working towards becoming better. And the same in business, right? Like, okay, I have achieved my goal, the goal for the next quarter, for the next year, it's different, it's going to increase, or you're going to have to do something else. Then it's like, it becomes a period where you deflate a little bit, and then you have to pick yourself up again and continue. And that's why it's very important that the coach or the leader manages the energy of the team as well, to make sure that it's just this process of high performance continues long term.
Delgado notes a stark difference between team athlete familiarity with help-seeking behaviors versus individual sport athletes. She said that team sport and individual sport athletes request different coaching aspects from the same support staff members.
On the individual level, when it comes to individual, right, it's important to know them as people, right? What are the values? What are the needs? What's the ambition, the capabilities, the strengths, weakness, motivation, commitment to the team, right? And what is the role within the team? But like, this is a process that takes a long time, right? Because otherwise we can be very robotic and just ask all the questions. But one has to genuinely care and getting to know that person, right? And let them talk, right? And because they need to want to share, right? And if we cannot make it forced. And this is like part of building a community, right? It might be dysfunctional, but it's still a community. So we have to understand the individuals, and then the team and the team dynamics. And as well, understand the goals and the expectations, right? In my experience, the main issue is disconnect between the expectations of the organization or the leader and the team members. That's been the main issue of disconnect within teams or dysfunctional teams. And for me, a key point after this exercise as well, that once I get to know the team dynamics and the individuals, is to address concerns. So if I meet with every person in the team and they hear nothing back from me, right? Now what? It's not helping, right? I have to get back to them, right? I have to get back to them, inform them what my plan is, what I intend to do with the given information, because I've been asking, right, how the team is, and they know they send someone into a team that feels dysfunctional. They understand there's something wrong, right? So I'm not there to blame or to judge. That's the main thing. But I have to share with them what I intend to do with the given information and what role they're going to play supporting me to achieve a common goal, right? Because we have to be in that together, in the whole process. When choosing a mentor or a coach, ultimately people seek guidance. Now, they could be looking for a role model or someone that can help them bring out the best version of themselves. But ultimately, they want someone to guide them in their high performance career, right? It's not just like, you have felt the same thing as me. Great. I mean, having gone through the same experience, it helps. But you think of Rafa Nadal, for example, his coach was his uncle. And Tony was never a professional tennis player. But I was able to provide Rafa with the required guidance to bring out the best in him as an athlete. And Arina Sabalenka's coach, right? He only won a single ATP match, not title match in his career, but has been able to support her on the road to becoming number one in the world. So basically, it really depends on what the athlete needs or wants at a given point in time. Sometimes, like I think Djokovic wanted to have Murray, or I'm talking tennis again, but it's been because they have been through the same experience and they feel that's what it's going to help them most at the time, and that's great. But more than hierarchy, I think the coach should be at the center rather than being at the top, because it's just the new education model is the same, right? When I was little, school was like, okay, that's the teacher and you obey, end of, right? The way the new generations are educated are different. So there's a different education model, and it's way more interactive, and it's way more, and it just puts the teacher, right, or the coach at the center, right? Here I am in the center, and we are going to get this together, right? So it's not like here, this is like this because I say so, right? Now there's this challenge, right? Like, why is this so, and why, right? So there's questioning. And it's good that that teacher brings on the dialogue, right? And say like, hey, let's open this for discussion. And it's just a different way of doing things. And we think it's working, right? That's what we believe. And for me, I love coaching that way, right? I love being at the center, sitting with my team and hear them interact, and then just challenge them as well, right? Like, what do you think? And just like, it's a lot, again, about bringing the critical thinking for them, right? And developing critical thinking, because that's what you want to do. When they are on the court or the pitch, you want them to think themselves. You cannot be there sitting behind them saying, do this, do that. No, they have to do that themselves. They have to come to a stage in life where they can make their own decisions, and they have to be based on something, right? And something they have learned before and they have repeated before. So they have the muscle memory for it.
Delgado gave a nod to athletes utilizing support staffers other than a head coach to motivate. It eases tension and mitigates, at least slightly, pressures of the hierarchy between athlete and coach. She alluded to assistant coaches being critical to the culture of a team by acting as the emotional liaison between the two parties. Her experience in coaching was also enlivened by a selection to teach at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain. The Rafa Nadal Academy is akin to the United States' IMG Academy, if IMG was tennis-centric. Students at the academy are immersed in high-level tennis and education. Founded in 2016, Nadal's Academy seeks to produce the best youth tennis players in the world, accepting 9 to 18-year-olds into its international school.
So basically, I completed a diploma with the Rafa Nadal School of Sport on high-performance sports psychology. And towards the end, I got invited to spend a few days at the academy in Mallorca. So I was able to experience firsthand how the academy works and how they promote excellence in the young athletes. So it's actually really interesting how high performance is perceived by different individuals, right? Some people have very different expectations, and it's so much about truly showing up and commitment. That's it, right? Because they have different levels, there's different people at different stages in their careers, in their lives. And it was really interesting to see how they cope with the demand, because it's very, very demanding, right? It's very demanding in a very positive environment, which I love, right? They also have a very clear set of values, right? So winning character, and this one is all about attitude, which obviously, many of them are teenagers who are there, right? Like trying to develop to start the career in tennis. So attitude is very important, right? Like that is a very key moment in their lives to be shaped. Right? Competitive mentality is another value, which is about overcoming challenges. Intensity, right? When it's high demand, you have to show some intensity at all times, right? Mastering the game, obviously. And teaching and learning to compete, which is not just about winning, but about respecting the opponent. So it's those are the key values they have. And for me, I could say the key takeaway from my time at the academy, it's an intangible one, right? And it's what we talked about before, it's a system of support that is built around the athletes, right? They are set up for success, as simple as that. And it's exactly what provides a safe environment that allows them to thrive. And I don't know if they understand, right? Like not all of them will understand that what they have, right? Because, when you see it from the outside, it's just like very impressive, right? And I was just there observing. That was mainly my job, right? And you see, okay, you have this and you can do this and you can do that. Do they all take advantage of all the possibilities given? Not necessarily. And like from outside, it's like, oh, you're not taking advantage of this. I wish I had it, right? But then again, they have different realities and it's different lives and they've different ambition, right? Not everybody wants to become a professional tennis player, right? No, because some of them are aware, right, of capabilities, or the commitment was required, right? The sacrifice that is required. But it was fantastic to see that it was a very positive environment. Number one, that was what I really loved, being there every single day and showing up, right? Very positive environment, and it's just the non-stop possibilities. Everything that was offered to the athletes was absolutely incredible, really incredible. Sometimes they must be tired, right? Like some people, they go to school, right? It's school and tennis and fitness, right? And it's a lot. That is a lot. And then when you show up there, there's no, you can be physically tired or mentally tired, but then you have to be there. And then you have to be there, but it's just not being present. You have to be there at a certain intensity. And that takes a lot, right? From someone mentally to say, okay, it's not like, okay, it's 9 a.m., I have to be here. No, it's 9 a.m., let's go, right? Like it is just, even if I'm tired, we're going to push through. And it's just that, I think that pushing constantly through, challenges, right? Because it's a challenge when one doesn't feel like doing something, right? And you have to push yourself. And going through that challenge and go like, I know I don't feel like it, I'm going to do it. And I think that part of the intensity value, that I'm like, why is the intensity a value? Because I was thinking like, is that even a value? Right? But I understand it now. In intensity, it's like, okay, you're showing up, but it's just not showing up. You're showing up to do something because you're committed to achieving X, Y, Z on this moment in time, every day, right? Not just as a tournament, but every single day. And that is actually what makes you better, because it does, right? Because you're really practicing is harder and harder every day. And it's just not showing up. It's just being there, but demonstrating your commitment by bringing the intensity of what is required.
One of the coaching takeaways that Delgado found was that occasionally, athletes are ill-equipped to handle their capabilities. They're either underbid on by their coaches, or conversely, have an ego that doesn't align with their skill level. Oftentimes, Delgado remarked, it's the job of the coach to either instill trust or humility in the athletes they work with. She said this is where most coaches get it wrong.
When they have awareness on their own capabilities, limitations, and what to work on, then we can create a path to success together. Now, when I say limitations, I mean, there are two types of limitations, right? The ones that are permanent, there's nothing, something is never going to happen. But also there are temporal limitations, which allow for future improvements. And then we map out what that road looks like and focus on the process and not the end result. And it's so tempting to look at the end result, but the truth is that at the end of the road, might have more, it might have more than one path. And it's tempting to think, okay, results, but that is just a rush process, right? And many may say, oh, that's a fluffy concept, and they believe that results can have to be always immediate, but it's not as simple. Because when we say process, when I say process, I'm not talking about a concept. It's not abstract. It has to be concrete and specific. So the process has to be broken down in actionable steps that are challenging but achievable. Like effort is a non-negotiable. So it is not just about sticking to a plan. It's about sticking with it with conviction and being ready to demand more of oneself, understanding one's capabilities and limitations, which could be physical, tactical, mental, but also taking into consideration external factors, right? So I think that's mostly they bring it, right? They bring their greatness because that is theirs, right? It's in it. I just try to make them aware of that greatness. When people say challenge you, they you know what? You just like, I can. And even though if you're feeling, and that's actually a cue I give some of my athletes, or when you feel like, no, I cannot do this. You're going to change the language. You're going to use positive language. And you're going to say, before doing it, you're going to say, I can. You get yourself into that, right? It's like, and I want you to physically say, I can. It's not, I can. Right? I want you to stand tall, right? And say, I can, loud and clear. And that's going to change your mindset. And I know it's a lot of exercise about it. I struggle myself, right, about these kind of things. But I do truly believe we start with positive language. It's going to bring more positive language and positive results. And it's just like bringing patience as well. Because sometimes we're so rushed because we so need it for results. We just want them now. And we want everything, now. We live in this culture of immediacy. Everything has to be right now. Everything has to be in the moment. But it's not like that all the time. Unfortunately, we are not all that incredibly talented. Things don't happen the way we want them to happen at the right time. So we have to be patient, and we have to be in control, right? We want to be in control. We have to be in control of our emotions first, right? So don't push things, like don't rush them. Like, of course, you're pushing by trying to be better, but then just be aware, where are you on that path to greatness, right? Am I, at the very beginning, in the middle, towards the end? What's missing? Or what do I need to do to get to the next level? And that's it. But then that takes as well the exercise of patience, which is obviously a very challenging one.
Is something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? Regardless of if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, or if you're just a human in this world going through a hard time, therapy can give you the tools to approach your life in a positive way. That's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and more accessible. This is an important mission because finding a therapist can be really hard, especially when you're limited to the options just in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. If this sounds like something that could help you, there's a link in the show notes to get you started on your therapy journey. It's betterhelp.com/closer mentality. Clicking that link helps support this channel, but it also gets you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. Because finding a therapist is a little like dating. If you don't really fit with the therapist matched with you, it's easy and free to switch therapists without stressing about insurance, who's in your network, or anything like that. So if you're struggling, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/closer mentality. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/closer mentality. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this channel. Did you know that you can purchase audiobooks directly from your favorite local bookstore? With Libro FM, you can pick from more than 325,000 audiobooks, including bestsellers and recommendations from real booksellers. You'll get the same audiobooks at the same price as the largest audiobook company out there, you know the name. But you'll be part of a different story, one that supports your local community. If you're new to audiobooks, they're the perfect way to squeeze more reading into your busy life. Listen with the free Libro FM app while you do chores, walk the dog, or relax at home. If you already love audiobooks and don't know what to listen to next, check out recommendations from the people who know best, booksellers. Closer Mentality has partnered with Libro FM on a special offer. Through the link in the show notes, you can get 2 audiobooks on Libro FM for the price of 1. Offer only valid for new members in Canada and the US. Thanks to Libro FM for sponsoring this podcast. A portion of Delgado's career has been spent translating sport performance data and fan engagement information into peak performance habits and branding for teams and athletes. She welcomes the artificial intelligence movement, as it helps streamline all the data input and analysis.
I'm very optimistic about the role of AI in sports, to be really honest with you. The way I see is that from the data perspective, AI is going to provide such an in-depth level of analysis at all levels that will help improve sports overall. Like from the inside, it can be insights from performance itself, right? Having coaches to adapt training to the athletes. Just think of the amount of data I could provide in a given moment for a match, right? It's just fascinating. And a post-match debrief will be very different from what they have been until now. And from the business perspective, there's loads of revenue optimization possibilities, right? Like but knowing the channel where someone's brand has been shown or mentioned and the demonstrated impact of this mention, right? I think for the first time, really, we can measure brand effectiveness from that perspective, right? And that has always been relatively complex. Like AI insights now make it much easier to track and optimize. But then obviously, of course, one of the biggest impacts of AI will be on fan engagement, right? Because that's very individual. And with AI, the content we deliver to the audience will be way more personalized, and obviously will create a deeper connection and will enhance the overall experience. I think that's going to be the key. Fan engagement is going to be absolutely a complete game changer thanks to AI. But it's going to affect everything, right? And I know people are very negative about AI. And yes, it's a bit scary because it's unknown, right? We don't know, and there's so many possibilities. It's just about using them for what is needed and what's good. Have to be careful about data in training because sometimes there is so much that it's easy to get lost. So the main thing is going back to the goals that we have decided. What goals are we going to, what are the goals, right, that we have agreed, right? Because we're working with someone, we have to, first of all, agree, what are we going to work towards, right? What are the goals we want to achieve? How we've broken them down and what needs to change, right? What are we working on? And I know people are obsessed with everything, like we cannot do everything at the same time. Because right now we have so much data available, which is fantastic, but it's just very messy as well. Like we need to be able to mine that data, understand what are we going to do with that? What's going to bring us? How's that data positive for us? Because I can improve this, I can improve that, I can improve that. Okay, how does that align to our goals? Does it have anything to do with the goals we have at the moment? No. Okay, then you know what? Maybe we look to or does it have to do anything with what we want to work in the future? Okay, that's fine. Then we can move it, right? We can park it and then we continue, and that's fine. But then, and I think that's a very good exercise, of awareness, right? Like we cannot work on everything because we're going to get distracted, and we have to say, okay, we have determined to work on this and this and this goal. This is the agreement. Now, what is required to achieve it? What data is going to help us? Anything else is just noise. And then, if there's something that they want to work on in the future, fantastic. Park it lot, write it down, put it there, and align it to a goal that you want to achieve. And then we can discuss it when we are done with whatever we're working on at the moment. But I think it's so easy to get distracted with data because right now there's so much data available about so many things. But we have to definitely step down and step back and say, okay, what do I need at the moment, rather than just going for everything.
Delgado has always found data analysis fascinating, and transposed onto sport, the potential for both excellence and innovation abounds.
The perception was that the data analysis job was a very boring one. And indeed, I did spend my days in Excel sheets, but I found it fascinating, right? And I know I'm going to romanticize it now, but guess I'm a bit of a nerd. Like it's like weaving magic, right? Of course, not about the data, but about what can be done with it, right? It's just everything is attitude and perception. So what can you do with it, right? It's not like, oh, you have so many Excel sheets. What can you do, right? And it's about the insights. It's about filtering down possibilities because loads of data is enough, right? And that's what we have today in many contexts, just data for everything. You're overwhelmed with data. But the exciting part about this is when you can find insights, right, and find nuggets of knowledge, right? And when you flesh out what is relevant, and then it just becomes useful. And then obviously from when I worked in tech companies like Google or LinkedIn, to mention a few, where data-driven decisions are just really the bread and butter from these companies, right? So I landed there just kind of by chance. But I found it fascinating that you have so much, right, around, and then it can be very confusing, right? And because you end up with very big files, but then you can get something really interesting out of it, right? So it's a bit of an investigation job. So I found it really exciting.
AI in the NIL age can also be used to track marketability trends of specific athletes, teams, and leagues. Delgado said that marketers have never had access to such tactics, and thus, athlete branding can reach and serve more niche target audiences.
We have quite big personalities in sport. which is great. So they're very marketable, right? And before this social media and AI, it was not as easy to make them, so to gain such a broad audience. And now they have huge audiences, and there's more people, stepping in because they have the charisma and the aura to be, on there. And obviously, you don't mind. Some people are more of an introvert. But they're happy to do so, and then they connect with the fans, they connect with the audience, and it gets them close, right? And again, it's very immediate, right? Like they are right away, Instagram Live or TikTok or whatever they're doing, and people can see them, right? And say, oh, this is the person I want to look up to, or I just, agree with this person's values. And it's great, right? So I think there's so many opportunities now for sports, for athletes particularly.
Delgado alluded to personal and professional brands which fail to utilize AI as missing a critical piece of their target demographics.
So SportsBiz uses artificial intelligence, right? Magic word, and advanced analytics. And then we're trying to transform how brands approach sports sponsorship, right? We have a platform that's called Deep Sports Solutions, and it's designed to help brands get the most out of the investment that they do in the sports industry. And this is a market that is worth over $1 billion. So that's actually really interesting. And while I met the CEO, Steve Forstein, and I love the conversation and his passion for sports because he has done so much, he's done a lot. It's such an impressive background and understanding of the sport industry. I just saw I could learn so much from him and the team because everybody's really experienced. They have just hired Michael Robichaud, who used to be the senior SVP for global partnerships for MasterCard. So it's very exciting times for us at the moment. And what I'm doing is supporting them in their international efforts. And it's just great. It's fantastic learning experience, like getting to know the industry, the key stakeholders and organizations, how it functions, right, how it works. And it's just fascinating being able to combine my both passions, right, business and sports.
Delgado gave a nod to the globalization of sport as a precipitator of artificial intelligence's importance. It's never been easier to reach the masses, but honing in on a target demographic, for example, international NFL fans, is significantly easier with AI.
I think this, thanks to AI as well, it's actually it's helping sports become even more global because there is a huge effort now from NFL, for example, to become international. Definitely they started with Ireland, I guess, because it's a big rugby culture, and they're getting more and more fans. And they're doing there's more events now for NFL in Germany, in Spain, in the UK as well. So I think these are sports that have been always a bit more, just national, right, than international. But they're really gaining loads of followers because, again, they can understand what the audiences need, what they want, getting something new, something fresh, a different perspective, and get to understand what people are talking about, who are the athletes. And like soccer has been quite international anyway, tennis the same, basketball relatively, but now it's just I think it's actually very international. Golf, for example, golf is a very very international sport. So I don't think that the sport is not global yet, right? I think we are at a stage. It's just like we are actually bringing more different types of sports across. We're getting to understand different sports as well that were not as, for example, in Europe, rugby, well, like American football, right? American rugby is not as well known, right? It's something completely new. But then again, people think we have enough with, the sports that it's a very traditional point of view. That we don't need new sports. We always need new sports, right? Especially with the rise of women's sports. Oh no, we don't need that. And I had that someone say that. It's like, what do you mean we don't need? There's a different audience for every different sport. Like some people might enjoy watching golf, some people might hate watching golf, right? So there's definitely an audience out there. We just need to, be present and show it to them, right? So it's, I think sport is global. We just need to be able to, it's just about marketing the different sports.
Are you an athlete rehabbing from an injury? Are you a coach or athletic trainer seeking additional support for your injured athlete toolkits? KT Tape has exactly what you need. KT tape is a rehabilitation tape that helps stabilize and compress sensitive areas of the body during exercise. Apply KT tape to an area either in pain or in recovery and feel the difference. KT tape is comfortable, stable, and long-wearing. There's tape for all modes of action, from gentle, which is safe for easy activity and everyday use, to pro extreme, for athletes in moderate to high-impact exercise. KT tape makes water-resistant tape as well for a more adaptable rehabilitation implementation. KT tape caters to lifelong athletes and focuses on reducing muscle soreness for all users when worn during exercise and up to 48 hours post. Are you an athlete in need of prescription sports goggles or sunglasses? Today's final sponsor may have just the solution for you. A site for sport eyes was created when founder Shannon Knight saw a niche that was perpetually going unfulfilled. A site for sport eyes grew out of a need for education surrounding the impact of sport-related eye injuries and their lasting repercussions. A site for sport eyes runs like a regular optical practice, not an e-commerce store. Their goal is to give you the same high-quality service and name-brand lenses made by the best optical laboratories in the country, geared specifically for athletes and athletic use cases. If you need new lenses or frames, a site for sport eyes is the perfect place to get them. The links to BetterHelp.com, Libro FM, KT Tape, and a site for sport eyes are all in the show notes. Now, let's get back to the episode. The globalization of sport and ability of AI to integrate fans with specific athletes, leagues, and missions, above all, creates a stronger sport fandom. It goes far deeper than that, though. When the athletes are given platforms that reach both the masses and niche markets, messaging like mental health content and personal branding can be disseminated to a more engaged crowd. This mainstream creep is what Delgado sees as the potential for the sport industry as a whole. What is the power of one individual piece of content when placed in front of 30,000 people versus millions of sports fans? Furthermore, what is the piece of content worth for a personal or professional brand? Delgado is the Executive Vice President of International Strategy for SportsBiz, a company that partners with athletes and organizations to help capitalize on market research spending, outreach, and return on investment. SportsBiz is able to analyze the value generation of content and athlete-specific branding, as well as the design and integration of marketing campaigns. In the age of NIL, there's never been a better time to partner with a sport marketing agency like SportsBiz to disseminate messaging to those who need to hear it. If you'd like to learn more about SportsBiz, I've linked the website in the show notes. I've also linked Isabel's LinkedIn below if you'd like to connect with her. You can watch she and I's full interview at the Closer Mentality Uncensored YouTube channel. The link to that is also in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning into episode 121 of Closer Mentality. As always, I'm your host, Julia Mellett. See you next week.